The hospital room smelled like bleach and something older, something human. The fluorescent lights hummed above the narrow bed where a man lay with tubes running from his arm to a machine that clicked softly every few seconds. His name was Leonard Graves. He was 79 years old. His hands were thin now, veined and pale, but they had once held a badge, a gun, and secrets that weighed more than either. A younger man sat beside the bed with a small recorder on his lap. His name was Michael. He was Leonard's nephew. He had come to hear stories before they disappeared forever. Leonard had been talking for 20 minutes about weather and baseball and the way the city used to smell in summer. Then he stopped. He looked at the ceiling. He said something Michael had never expected. "I need to tell you about Bumpy Johnson." Michael leaned forward. He did not press record yet. He waited. Leonard's voice was quiet but steady. "There are things I never said, things I was told not to say, things I didn't understand until it was too late to matter." He paused. His chest rose and fell beneath the thin blanket. "Turn that thing on," Leonard said. "I want this down." Michael pressed the button. The tiny red light blinked once, then held. Leonard Graves had joined the Federal Bureau of Investigation in 1954. He was 27 years old, freshly married, full of belief in order and law and the machinery of justice. He had been assigned to the New York field office. His job was to monitor organized crime in Harlem. That meant watching men who controlled money, drugs, numbers, women, muscle. Men who operated outside the system but somehow remained untouchable. Bumpy Johnson was one of those men. Everyone knew his name. He walked through Harlem like he owned the streets, but he never raised his voice. He never needed to. People moved when he moved. They listened when he spoke. He had been in and out of prison, had worked with the Italian mobs, had survived wars that left other men dead in alleys. But by the time Leonard was assigned to watch him, Bumpy was older, slower, still dangerous but different. Leonard spent 2 years tracking him, following him to diners, to barbershops, to late-night meetings in basements that smelled like cigar smoke and sweat. He built files. He took photographs. He documented patterns. He believed he was doing the right thing. But the file on Bumpy Johnson was strange. There were gaps. Entire months where surveillance was ordered to stop. Meetings that were redacted in reports. Phone calls that disappeared from transcripts. Leonard asked his supervisor why. The supervisor told him to stay focused on the work he was given. Leonard asked again. The supervisor told him to stop asking. That should have been the end of it, but Leonard was young. He believed in answers. So he kept looking. One night in 1957, Leonard was sitting in an unmarked car outside a tenement building on 146th Street. It was February. The cold pressed against the windshield. He had been there for 3 hours, waiting for Bumpy to leave a meeting on the second floor. He was writing notes in a small pad when someone knocked on the passenger window. Leonard turned fast, hand going to his holster. It was Bumpy Johnson. He stood there in a long coat and a fedora, his breath clouding the air. He did not look angry. He looked patient. He gestured toward the door. Leonard hesitated. Then he unlocked it. Bumpy sat down in the passenger seat and closed the door behind him. He did not say anything right away. He just sat there, hands resting on his knees, eyes forward. "You've been following me for a while now," Bumpy said. Leonard did not deny it. "You know what you're looking for?" Bumpy asked. "Evidence," Leonard said. Bumpy smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the kind of smile a man wears when he knows something you don't. "You think you know what I am," Bumpy said. "You think I'm the problem." Leonard said nothing. "I used to think the same thing about men like you," Bumpy continued. "Men who wear badges and think that makes them clean. I don't claim to be perfect," Leonard said. "Good," Bumpy said, "because neither am I." There was a long pause. A car passed on the street, its headlights sliding across the windshield. "You ever ask yourself why they keep sending you after me?" Bumpy asked. "Why they keep files on me but never close them? Why they watch but never move?" Leonard did not answer. "You should ask that," Bumpy said. "You should ask why they need me around." He opened the door and stepped out into the cold. Before he closed it, he looked back at Leonard. "You seem like a decent man," Bumpy said. "Be careful what you learn." He walked away. Leonard sat in the car for another hour, but he did not write anything down. The next morning, Leonard was called into his supervisor's office. The man behind the desk was named Carter. He was in his 50s, gray-haired with a face that gave nothing away. "You had contact with the subject last night," Carter said. It was not a question. "Yes," Leonard said. "Why didn't you report it immediately?" "I didn't think it was relevant." Carter leaned back in his chair. His eyes stayed on Leonard. "Everything is relevant," Carter said. "You don't decide what matters. We do." Leonard nodded. "You're being reassigned," Carter said. "Effective immediately. Why?" "Because I said so." Leonard wanted to argue. He wanted to demand a reason. But he had been trained not to ask too many questions, so he stood up and left the office. But the question stayed with him. Over the next 10 years, Leonard moved through different assignments. He worked cases in Brooklyn, in the Bronx, in Queens. He tracked union bosses and smugglers and men who ran protection rackets out of barber shops. He did good work. He made arrests. He built a reputation as someone reliable, someone who followed orders. But he never forgot what Bumpy Johnson had said. "You should ask why they need me around." Leonard started paying attention, not officially, just quietly in the margins of his work. He noticed patterns. He noticed how certain criminals were arrested and others were not, how certain investigations were pushed hard and others were left to drift, how certain names appeared in files but never in courtrooms. He noticed that power was more complicated than he had been taught. In 1968, Bumpy Johnson died. Leonard read about it in the newspaper. Heart attack, a restaurant in Harlem, sudden and final. The article was short. It did not say much about who he had been or what he had done. It mentioned his criminal record. It mentioned his association with organized crime. It mentioned nothing else. Leonard kept the clipping. He did not know why. By the time Leonard retired in 1989, he had been with the Bureau for 35 years. He had never spoken publicly about Bumpy Johnson. He had never filed a report about that night in the car. He had buried it the way men bury things that do not fit into the story they are supposed to tell. But now, lying in a hospital bed with his body failing him, Leonard wanted to tell the truth. "There was a file," Leonard said to his nephew, "a classified file. I saw it once, just once. It was locked in a cabinet in Carter's office. I was cleaning out the room after he retired. I found the key in a drawer. Michael was still listening. The recorder was still running. I opened it," Leonard said. "I wasn't supposed to, but I did." He closed his eyes for a moment, as if the memory was too heavy to hold while looking at the light. "There were 12 pages," Leonard said. "Most of it was surveillance notes, meetings, dates, names, the kind of stuff I had been writing for years. But page 12 was different." His voice got quieter. Page 12 had a list of payments, federal payments, made to intermediaries, to informants, to people who were keeping things stable. Michael frowned. "Stable how?" Leonard opened his eyes. "Bumpy Johnson was working with us," Leonard said. "Not officially, not in a way that would ever be admitted, but he was keeping Harlem under control. He was preventing chaos. He was making sure that certain kinds of violence didn't happen. And in exchange, we left him alone." Michael said nothing. "We used him," Leonard said. "We let him operate because it was easier than dealing with what would come if he was gone. And we told ourselves it was strategy. We told ourselves it was smart. His hands trembled slightly on the blanket. "But the truth is, we were just afraid," Leonard said. "Afraid of what happens when you try to control something you don't understand." There was a long silence. "What happened to the file?" Michael asked. Leonard shook his head. "I put it back. I locked the cabinet. I never told anyone I saw it." "Why not?" Leonard looked at his nephew. His eyes were tired. "Because I didn't know what it would mean," he said. "Because I didn't know if I was the good guy or the bad guy anymore." He breathed slowly. "I spent my whole life believing in a line," Leonard said. "A line between right and wrong, between criminals and lawmen, between order and chaos. And then I learned that the line was never real. It was just something we drew so we could sleep at night." Michael felt something tighten in his chest. He did not know what to say. Leonard reached over and touched the recorder with one finger, gently, like he was making sure it was real. "I don't know if Bumpy Johnson was a good man," Leonard said. "I don't think he would have called himself that. But I know he understood something I didn't. He understood that the system doesn't work the way they tell you it does. He understood that survival means making deals with people who will never admit they made them." He paused. "And I think he pitied me," Leonard said, "because I believed in something that never existed." The machine beside the bed beeped softly. A nurse passed in the hallway outside, her shoes squeaking on the linoleum. "Page 12 was redacted in every other copy of that file," Leonard said. "I checked later. Every version that went to other departments, every summary that went up the chain, page 12 was blacked out, erased, like it never happened." "Why are you telling me this now?" Michael asked. Leonard was quiet for a long time. "Because I'm tired of carrying it," he said. "And because I think people should know that the world is more complicated than heroes and villains. That sometimes the men we chase are holding things together in ways we can't. That sometimes we are part of the problem we think we're solving." He closed his eyes again. "And because I want someone to know that I saw it," Leonard said. "That I knew. That I didn't do anything about it. That I am responsible too." Michael turned off the recorder. He sat with his uncle in the quiet room. Outside, the city moved on, unaware and indifferent. People went to work. People went home. The machinery of law and crime and survival turned the way it always had, hidden beneath the surface of normal life. Leonard Graves died 3 days later. Michael kept the recording. He did not release it. He did not know what good it would do. He did not know if the truth mattered anymore, or if it ever had. But sometimes late at night he would listen to it again. He would hear his uncle's voice, thin and tired and honest, speaking about a man named Bumpy Johnson and a file that was never supposed to be seen. And he would think about all the people who believed in lines that did not exist. All the people who thought they were on the right side. All the people who learned too late that the world does not work the way they were told. And he would wonder what other secrets were locked in cabinets, waiting for someone to find the key. The city kept moving, the files kept growing. The men who wore badges and the men who did not kept circling each other in the dark, bound together by a truth no one wanted to say out loud, that sometimes the only thing separating order from chaos is a deal made in silence, and that silence is the heaviest thing a man can carry.